Luciano Pesci. Luciano turns data and research into actionable, easy-to-understand business insight for tech-focused startups, SMBs, and nonprofits. He has a PhD, so he's way smarter than me. He's a PhD candidate in the economics at the University of Utah, holds an MBA in economics and an HBA in history, and a BS in political science, all from the U of U. Hopefully, most of what I said this morning was true. He can confirm that. He has conducted hundreds of primary research and data mining projects, teach data analytics, marketing research, statistics, and economics at multiple universities. He's also the man that's working on the survey we want you to take at the end of this conference. Please put your hands together for Mr. Luciano.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me yet? I'm loud. I'm Italian, so I'm loud. A lot of beautiful faces out there. I'm not just buttering you up before I take a bite. I know earlier this was done. Let's do it again. Who was here last year? By a show of hands. Okay. This is the first year? Show of hands. Yeah, this is great. This organization is growing. This is an important organization in the state of Utah. We get to come together. We get to give our specializations to each other. I'm very thankful it's here. The specialization I'm going to share with you today is data analytics, and specifically how to tell a story with data. So there's two stories that I'm actually going to tell today. The first is about a brand. I'm going to reveal it to you in a few moments, but I'm going to tell you the story of that brand with data. The second story that I'm going to tell to you is how we actually did this, because it's great that you're going to learn about this brand, but you need to be able to walk out of here today and use data in your job. It's not that hard. It's the next mandatory skill. Could you imagine not learning to have typed in the 80s? What would your life be like? If you're not learning how to do data analytics today, that's the same thing. Everyone is going to be expected to be able to use this. I will put my name on the fact that it is the worst taught subject in academia, statistics. And so by the end of today, you should be able to use data effectively in telling a story. And that's the second story that I'm going to tell you. Before I get into that, what do I mean by data? This is the worst jargon word out there. Data, data, data. How many times do you think you hear it in a day? From Verizon alone. I have an 11-year-old grandfathered Verizon data plan. I use 65 gigs a month. Know that I'm sticking it to them on your behalf. That's not the kind of data I'm talking about. You have access to more data than anyone has in the past, and that's because marketing has been leading the way with data. And that's really because of Google. So I want to make sure that we're on the same page when we're talking about data, because I have a very specific definition of it. We're in the midst of the biggest transformation in human history, the digital revolution. Nothing in the past has ever come close to the potential of this. If we don't all kill each other in the next election, things are looking bright for the future. Because with all of this digitization comes quantification. We have more data available to us than we've ever had before. It only used to be governments. It was only the Fed who could have data and statisticians. And you now, as marketers, have more data than's ever been available. In fact, you're probably not even using most of it. You should. It's the competitive decider. This is what is allowing brands like Amazon and Google to crush their competitors. I'm not telling you to use data only, and this is where data gets too much support. Okay? Data doesn't actually prove anything. So anybody who says the statistics prove, just punch them in the face. It's not true. They show compelling evidence. They can be wrong. Data is not a guarantee. You as human beings still are able to process in real time more information than a machine can. Yes, a machine can run trillions of calculations a second and tell you whether it's a cat or not. Sometimes it's a sailboat. The machines aren't to the point where they can ingest all this information and say, well, this is what you should actually do. You still have a competitive advantage. And data will help you in that. Okay, so it should complement your gut intuition. It shouldn't replace it. I'm not telling you to be blind and only use data. But human intuition plus data is extremely powerful. So given the potential of this, why are 80% of these projects failing right now? And that is the true number. 80% of you right now are running some sort of analytics program that is destined to fail. And I know you want to pitch it like, we're the 20% that will survive. It's not what probability says. Most people aren't doing this successfully. And that's because not only is this the worst taught subject in academia, but the analysis itself is confusing. The results, who knows what a p-value even means? Go to YouTube and watch scientists describe a p-value. 95% of them get it wrong. It's too technical. It's too full of jargon. And that's because to date, statistics has been taught as a subject where you take an arm's length from the problem of whoever it is you're helping. Well, you're going to have to develop these skills, and you can't take that arm's length approach. You need to actually translate this for decision makers. And at Imperatos, we say that if it's not good for an 8-year-old, if you can't go to an 8-year-old and explain what's happening, not ready for upper management. You have to translate this stuff. They don't want p-values. They want to know what, they have a problem. What does the data say about solving it? Okay? So the purpose of this presentation is to tell you those two stories, one about a brand and one about this process. The process is this. It's 3 steps. This is what I teach at the University of Utah. This is a core value at Imperatos. There's 3 steps in solving any problem with data. The first is you have to think broadly. You need the context. You need to understand how that data fits into the rest of the world. It's not good enough to just report a single metric. You got to know what it affects, what it's dependent on, and everything that's shaping it. The second is mining deeply, and this means using analytics, and I'll talk about what we've done. And then the third, and this is really the most important step, is you have to explain it simply to the people who need to know. Nobody's impressed that you ran a t-test with a p-value. Just tell them what to do. And this is why so many of those data projects are failing. So I'm going to take you through these steps using an example. Okay. So the first is thinking broadly. I picked a random topic. And I say random because it's not random at all. I picked it. But it's not something that many of you are probably going to even know anything about. We'll see in a moment. We'll take another poll. I picked this because I really want to show you a story today. By the end of this, you should really know a lot about this brand, and if you don't, you come find me, I will buy you popcorn. It's a short story. It's quick. It could be longer. We could do additional analysis. I just want to show you, I want to give you a flavor of what's possible with data analytics. The protagonists of this story, 2 white guys who wanted to teach the world history through rap. Anybody think they have an idea who I'm talking about yet? There you go. Epic Rap Battles of History. The most successful internet show ever. 2 white guys teaching the world history through rap. That's really, you distill it down, that's what it is. It's been 5 years. They're an amazing brand. I'm going to tell you their story using data, but I'm also going to show you the process of how we did it. This was a failed venture early on. They tried to start, they were comedy improv people. They thought, oh, this will be really funny. We'll do it in front of a comedy club. Nope, wasn't funny. Failed miserably. Could have gone home and cried, and that could have been the end of it. Instead, they said, well, and keep in mind, this is 5 years ago. Let's use YouTube. So they put these videos, they started to produce these videos. They had a very high production value. And within 5 years, they've become the most successful internet show ever. So let's go back to the slides. I'm going to show you a clip now of this. For those who haven't seen it, if you're offended by profanity, you are about to be very offended. Okay? And I show you in its entirety because I really want you to understand what it is. Because when I get to explaining what's driving it and how the fans are engaged and the size of this, it's amazing. So I'm not going to censor this. For those who've seen it, this is an epic rap battle between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Let me just step right in. I got things to advance. I'm an innovator, baby, change the world. Fortune 500 before you kiss the girl. I'm a pimp, you're a nerd. I'm slick, you're cheesy. Beating you is apple too easy. I make the product that the artist chooses and the GUI that Melinda uses. I need to bring up some basic shit. Why'd you name your company after your dick? Blowjobs, you arrogant prick. With your second-hand jeans and your turtleneck. I'll drill a hole in the middle of your pony head with your own little spin of beach ball of death. Hippie, you got given up at birth. I give away your net worth to AIDS research. Combine all your little toys and I still crush that. iPhone, iPad, iPhone, I smack. A man uses the machines you build to sit down and pay his taxes. A man uses the machines I build to listen to the Beatles while he relaxes. Well, Steve, you steal all the credit for work that other people do. Did your fat beard Wozniak write these raps for you too? Ooh, everybody knows Windows bit off Apple. I triple the profits on a PC. All the people with the power to create use an Apple. And people with jobs use PC. You know, I bet they made this beat on an Apple. Nope, Fruity Loops, PC. You will never, ever catch a virus on an Apple. Well, you can still afford a doctor if you bought a PC. Let's talk about doctors. I've seen a few cause I got a PC, but it wasn't from you. I built a legacy, son. You can never stop it. Now excuse me while I turn heaven a profit. Fine, don't be like that, die then. The whole world loves you, but you are my friend. I'm alone now with nothing but power and time, and no one on earth who can challenge my mind. I'm a boss, I own DOS. Your future is my design. I'm a god, own Xbox. Now there's no one to stop me, the world is mine.
I'm sorry, Bill. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. Take a look at your history. Everything you built leads up to me. I got the power of a mind you could never be. I'll beat your ass in chess and Jeopardy. I'm running C++ saying hello world. I'll beat you D singing about a daisy girl. I'm coming out the socket. Nothing you can do can stop it. I'm on your lap and in your pocket. How you gonna shoot me down when I got the rocket? Your cortex just doesn't impress me. So go ahead, try to tell and test me. I stomp on a Mac and a PC too. I'm on Linux, bitch. I thought you knew. My CPU's hot, but my core one's cold. Beat you in 17 lines of code. I think different from the engine of the days old. Hasta la vista, like the Terminator told ya.
Biggest internet show ever. This is only one of 64 episodes. Okay, so here's, oh, let me go back. I'm hitting the wrong one. Oh. All right. We got Adam and Eve. And we'll see later that Eve has twice the profanities of Adam. This features Key and Peele. This is Gandhi versus Martin Luther King. Oprah versus Ellen. One of my favorites, Mr. T versus Mr. Rogers. But as a 3-year-old, I met Mr. T at a mall, and my life's pretty much just been downhill since then. Napoleon Bonaparte versus Napoleon Dynamite, and Santa Claus versus Moses featuring Snoop Dogg. It's a pretty unique brand. I keep hitting the wrong button. There we go. And as a result, it's become the most popular internet show ever. In fact, YouTube, along with the Vice channel and some others, Vice and Epic Rap Battles of History are getting billboards and TV ads, and if you're sitting in here later today watching a movie for the Megaplex Theater, you might see an Epic Rap Battles of History ad. And YouTube, meaning Google, is paying for all of that. It's the 20th largest YouTube channel by subscribers, 13.5 million. They only have 64 episodes, and across those 64 episodes, they've had 3.5 billion views. And it's a very narrow group of people. They have really identified their persona. They have really figured out, and this is the story of the brand that I'm going to tell you today, who they are helping. Well, what is the brand promise? Every video since the first one ends with the same call to action. Let me go back. Who won? Who's next? You decide. It seems like Epic Rap Battles of History is listening to this. I'll make the case today that they're doing very well at matching what their customers want. There isn't within YouTube an answer to who won, but we'll get into that today. They're highly visual productions. They're meticulously researched. They're intellectually engaging, and they're very irreverent. They also have other channels where they give their fans behind-the-scenes access. But the 3.5 billion, that's just total views pulled from the YouTube API on Tuesday. 3.5 billion. By the end of the week, it'll probably be, who knows, almost 4. They have a lot of fan engagement. Well, they feature often other YouTube stars. So there's two creators behind this. One is called Epic Lloyd, and the other is Nice Peter. But they get other YouTube stars to come and perform as some of these characters. So they use affiliate networking very successfully. They also have celebrities beyond Snoop Dogg and Key and Peele. They also got Weird Al Yankovic, who was Sir Isaac Newton in his battle against Steve Nye, the science guy. There are a lot of copycat channels. They're not as good, not even close. There are fan sites, people who do videos assessing every component of Epic Rap Battles of History, and they've also been featured in things like Elders React To, Teens React To, and I encourage you to go watch those 2 videos because one group gets it. One group, it's immediately, oh, this is exactly what I want, 2.5 minutes long. There's no dates. I hate history. I've hated history in high school. I hate history in college. It's just a memorization of dates that don't mean anything. Oh, Washington had sheep teeth. Awesome. And there is an impact on Google Trend searches because of them. They're effectively teaching history. They're not doing it in the way that someone like the teaching company might. So if you go watch the Elders React versus the Teens React, one of the things they'll point out is, oh, that's kind of funny. Especially the elders. Oh, that's funny. Clean it up. I'm going to show you later that every additional profanity increases the likelihood of winning by 11%. This is also being used in India to teach English. So when we think broad, the whole point of this step is to go get the context of what's going on. There are people in India who have proposed a learning curriculum. You can go to that link, download the curriculum, and start teaching people who can't speak English how to do it using Epic Rap Battles of History. After we've gone and got the context, the broad context of the problem, the next step is to actually apply analytics to it. And I say mining deeply, this doesn't just mean running statistics. This also means putting together a whole research program that makes sense and that's going to answer some real problems, questions. If you don't have a clear target before you begin any data analytics project, before you can even tell a story with data, you have to get the data. If you don't know what you're going to do with that data at the end, don't do it. Call in sick that day. There's no point. No one's going to be happy. Because the chances that you get something that matches what other people want to do is pretty much zero. You have to have a clear target. I'll show you the two that we're going to use today. And they are, what's driving fan engagement? Why do people watch these videos? Why do they have 3.5 billion views? And are they living up to that brand promise of listening to their fans, giving them access to their fans? Well, this meant that we had to look for public data. If Epic Lloyd or Nice Peter is happening to sit in the audience today and they want to give me access to their proprietary YouTube data, I'm a wizard, I can help you. The chances are we're not going to get access to that data. We had to use other means. Well, YouTube has an open API. So we were able to grab the video title, the date it was posted, the length measured in seconds, the number of views, the number of comments, the number of likes, the number of dislikes, and a sample of the comments, not all of them. Now I know that what we can get through the open API does not match what they can get through their proprietary API. So keep in mind, everything that follows is based on this data plus some more that we made. Now, from that API data itself, we could create new variables. You should be thinking of that. We can look at views, but what about the ratio of views to something? Or what about the ratio of likes to dislikes? Or likes minus dislikes? Once you get a data set, you should start to think about, okay, this is what's there now. What can I make from this? I'll show you that's not where we stopped. But we made things like net likes, the like ratio, days since posting, comments per day since posting, views per day since posting. And we'll get into why we deflated by time. Comments per video length. So this is like a second-by-second measure of how well Epic Rap Battles is doing. The producers of the show clearly look through the comments to find suggestions for future battles because they'll show them at the end of the battle. There's no one on YouTube that's pulling up who won. So half of their brand promise isn't being answered by them. Well, God bless the market economy. A nerd website called Fandom shows up and they let everybody vote on every single one of the episodes and they run the whole thing separate for them. So we went to that site, we grabbed that data, and we merged the two together. We ran natural language processing on the comments, on some of the text, so they have closed caption, so you can also get the closed caption from the YouTube API. We looked at everything and we said, what is going on here? And the number one thing that stood out is people are profane. It's one of the things that the elders comment on. It's not even commented on by the teens. It's a shift. It's a conceptual shift. They know who they're appealing to. It's in the comments. It's in the text of the battles. We were also curious what the gender does or what real or fictional. So Steve Jobs and Bill Gates are both real. HAL 9000, for those who it's well beyond your generation, is from a movie long ago that predicted the future pretty well about computers rising to the point of power. And that's typical of these battles. This combined data set is available on our website. You can go there. There's a blog post. You can download this data and play with it yourself. We used R and RStudio to do the analysis. These are both open source free tools. And then we also use Tableau to make some of these visualizations today. But we were still aimed at answering these two questions. What drives fan engagement? And are they living up to their brand promise? So we've hit the point where we've gone and done research, we've got the data, we've figured out what we're going to get, we've analyzed it. Now we actually have to translate it into a story. So we're going to get into the details now of epic rap battles of history, then we're going to step back and talk about this whole process. But this is the data answer to those two questions. As far as fan engagement, how are these battles stacking up? Which ones are getting the most views, the most likes, the most dislikes? We can see that in the net likes, meaning likes minus dislikes. We can see that in the likes ratio, likes divided by dislikes. Again, two variables created from the API data that weren't there. What happens if we deflate these by the time since posting? Some of these videos have been online for 5 years. Some have been online for a month. We have to take that into consideration. There's an ordinal relationship here with this data that matters a lot that we have to consider. And what role does profanity specifically play in the battles? As far as the comments go, the average is 200,000 about, okay? But there's an outlier. So whenever you see an average value that's higher than a median value, you know you have something called skew. Something's pulling it. The median is if you've lined up every observation in numerical order, what's the middle one numerically? Right, you got 100 observations, just divide it in half. And if it's even, then you got to take 51 and 50 and average them. That's different than the mathematical average, the geometric average, which you might be using, which is kind of like the fulcrum point. If you balance the whole distribution, where does it just sit perfectly? Well, the reason the mean is above the median is because we have an outlier. And it's Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney. 600, 3 times as many comments. And it's not just the comments. This shows up again in the views. So if you look at the average views, you have 49 million per video. Barack Obama versus Romney, which also features Abraham Lincoln, who's coming back from a battle from Chuck Norris. 123 million views. It's a lot. And you see this in the data. Okay, so this is all episodes, all 64 episodes, chronologically ordered. It shows the total views per episode. The color coding shows the groupings. What are the highest views? What are the next highest views? So it goes from dark red down to dark, well, black. And you might look at this and say, oh, well, sorry, Nice Peter and Epic Lloyd, your best days are behind you, because all your videos have got less and less engagement over time. Well, that fails to take into consideration a couple things. One is time. Alexander the Great versus Ivan the Terrible has only been out for a month. John Lennon versus Bill O'Reilly has been out for 5 years. So naturally, one's going to get more votes than the other, more views, more likes, more dislikes than the other. And we'll deflate this by time so you can see the pattern. But Barack Obama versus Mitt Romney, and then Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates, Justin Bieber, here's Justin Bieber versus Beethoven, Einstein versus Stephen Hawking, top views. Well, you might leave this and say, okay, well, we need to advertise only on those videos on YouTube. That's where they're getting the most views. All right, because that's the battle. That's the two challengers. Well, Adolf Hitler and Darth Vader have faced off 3 times in this series. Okay? And if you take that and you group them, then you start to see the dominance of Vader versus Hitler, which is this red piece. You may only want to advertise on this video or these 3 videos. They're dominating. This is almost 10% of all their views just on these 3 battles from the exact same data. What about people's likes and dislikes? This should be a pretty good measurement of fan engagement. The average is about 350,000. There's 2 outliers. Again, Barack Obama versus Romney, but the other is the Steve Jobs versus Bill Gates. As far as the likes ratio, so this is the amount of likes to the amount of dislikes. So it should give us a pretty good view of which ones are really popular. The average was about 40 times. There's one exception, one outlier, J.R.R. Tolkien versus George R.R. Martin at 104. But you'll see if we go back, They don't have a lot of views. Even though the difference is very large between them, it doesn't matter. They don't have a lot of views. This plot shows on the positive axis, so this part up here, again, we're ordered by all the episodes in chronological order. Above the axis is all the likes, below are all the dislikes, so this is what's behind net likes or the likes ratio. Here's the other thing to note. This is in hundreds of thousands. This is in tens of thousands, because if we show it on the exact same scale, this just looks like a flat line. They have way more likes, 40 times on average, likes from dislikes. So when we talk about fan engagement, they clearly, the people they're reaching and they're showing the video to are enjoying this content. There are a couple outliers that we talked about. This one's really interesting. Bruce Banner versus Bruce Jenner. You're going to see it just show up over and over and over. Nobody liked it. The reason I showed you that video in its totality is because profanity is an inseparable part of epic rap battles of history. In fact, it's such an inseparable part that we could do a whole series of analyses just on profanity, and here's what we found. They're clearly speaking the same language as their fans. This is true if we look at the content of the battle. It's true if we look at the content of the comments. The average number is 4 traditional profanities. This was one of the hardest things to quantify. There were whole conference room meetings where 8 people were like, well, is this a profanity? I don't know. It sounds like it. It's clearly an insult. But is it a profanity? These are just traditional. The average is 4. The most is Hitler versus Vader, number 2 at 11. But the top profaner, the queen of cursing, Marilyn Monroe, at 8 individually. But Darth Vader was a close second at 7 within 33 seconds. He gets the title for the most in the shortest time. It's an inseparable part of this brand. And as I said earlier, Eve has twice what Adam has. So now that we understand some of the basic components of what they're doing in the videos and likes, dislikes, comments, that's what's driving engagement. But what about winning? Are they living up to their brand promise? Who won, who decides, or who's next, you decide. So we looked at why challengers are winning. We looked at gender, fictional status, length of time. There was a whole series of variables we used. And are those improving over time? If they're living up to their brand promise, these things should be improving. Views, comments, net likes, and the likes ratio. So what is predicting what wins? The longer a challenger raps, the more likely they are to win. That's one of the things. Across all battles, whoever has the most time wins. This could be selection bias. Epic Lloyd and Nice Peter could be very good and understand their customer very well and be giving them exactly what they want. They give Vader more time than they give Hitler. But it is one of the components that we see. The longer a person raps, the higher the probability of them winning. Another is that gender didn't seem to make a difference. That said, this is almost all men. But a real versus a fictional challenger wins almost all the time. So one of the real versus fictional as an example is William Shakespeare, who is real, versus Dr. Seuss, who is real, except he never raps. It's the Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and 2 that rap the whole time, and there is an obscenity related to footy pajamas, if you want to watch that video later. That's not a real character. It was hard to quantify this data, is my point, so take all of this with a grain of salt. But from that data, here's what we have. Gender didn't seem to matter, but a real versus a fictional did. And profanity increased the chances of winning by 11% per word. So Marilyn Monroe was just trying to up her chances of winning. Now, because each video has been available for different amounts of time, looking at some of those earlier plots, yeah, some of those earlier videos have more total views, they have more net likes versus dislikes, but they've been available for 5 years instead of 4 years. And we need to take that into consideration. Well, one of the variables that we got from the YouTube API is date posted. It's pretty easy to say, okay, the date posted minus today, what is that value? And today meaning August 23rd, so this was pulled on Tuesday. As of Tuesday, we knew exactly how many days each video had been available to view. So we could deflate all of these metrics now by time to see if there is this pattern of increasing engagement, increasing comments, net likes, likes ratios over time. Are they listening? Are they living up to their brand promise? Here's a plot that shows all the videos again over time by total views divided by days available since posting. Now what you'll notice is that the newest views have significantly more than any of the others. So you could look at this and say, okay, yes, Darth Vader and Adolf Hitler are the most engaging overall as far as views go, but anything we post right now gets more engagement than we've had in the past. That's slightly biased. It could be that they get a whole bunch of their 13.5 million subscribers to watch the video within the first 2 months, and then nobody watches it, and it just slowly goes down over time. That could be part of the pattern. I have no doubt that these things right here will eventually converge to somewhere along that, but I also think there is a general trend here of them improving. We see, if we deflate by time, a very, very different pattern in the story. What about the likes ratio? This is where I think some of the most compelling evidence comes. More people are liking the newer videos. And it's not perfect, there's hit or miss. But they clearly are improving on their fan engagement. Here are the actual likes versus dislikes. This again shows the Bruce Banner, Bruce Jenner outlier. But over time, they seem to be increasing likes at a faster rate than their dislikes. So as far as the question of fan engagement goes, I think there's a pretty clear answer. Yes, they're doing a better job. I told you it would be a short story. They're doing a better job of engaging their fans. There are clear things that predict who will win. As a brand, they are living up to their promise. So as I conclude this, there's 2 things that I hope you've been able to learn from seeing this example. These slides will be made available to you. But there's 2 pieces of this story that I hope you've been able to glean from today's presentation. The first is the story of this brand. How did they become the biggest YouTube channel in history? By listening to their fans. Really actively listening to them, engaging with them, giving them back-scene access, going on tour. They go to tours on cities, and they dress up like George Washington. They battle William Wallace, and they go backstage and they change, and they come back as the Easter Bunny and Genghis Khan. They're engaging their fans based on what they've seen is successful. But the second story that I hope you've been able to get from this is that this is a clear process. It goes through a series of steps. The story of how to go out and get data, how to take that data and analyze it, then how to put it into something that's easily digestible. This is something that you can and should replicate. Try, even if you don't feel up to it yet, just try. There's so many online resources to help you. You can email me. Next slide's got my email. Send me an email. Hey, I don't know how to do this. If I can answer it, I'll tell you. If I can't, I'll direct you to people who can. Just try to bring this method into your daily life. It's not hard. It will differentiate you. It will give you a competitive advantage. And it really comes down to 3 steps. Think about the problem broadly. identify what you're going to actually analyze, mine it deeply, and then take that information, translate it into simple English, and explain it simply. Here's that contact information. Reach out to me. It looks like we've got 1 minute for questions. Thank you very much.